Good evening. I'd like to call the February 14th, 2017 Longmont City Council meeting to order. This is a regular session. Could we please start with a roll call?
Yes, Mayor Coombs.
Here.
Council members Bagley.
Here.
Christensen. Here. Finley. Here. Moore. Here. Peck. Here. Santos. Here. Mayor Coombs, we have a quorum.
Okay, let's stand for a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Anyone wishing to speak at first call, public invited to be heard, will need to add his or her name to the list outside the chambers. Only those on the list will be invited to speak at first call, public invited to be heard. Speakers who do not place their name on the list will have an opportunity to speak at final call, public invited to be heard, or at the public hearing items later in this meeting. So now we have the minutes from January 31st to approve. Councilmember Finley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I move passage or an approval of the January 31st. This says 2016, but it's 2017.
Yes, it's 2017. Yep. All right. I'll second that. Let's vote. Aren't you going to vote? Mm-hmm. All right, that passes 7-0. Are there any agenda revisions or submissions of documents?
No, Mayor Coombs, there are none.
Is Councilmember Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I've been contacted by Longmont Coalition for People and Pollinators with a request for City Council to adopt a pollinator-safe resolution. This request arises over the concern over the rapid decline of pollinators and other beneficial species, due in part to various chemical weed and pest control strategies that have been widely used across the country for some time. Other factors being attributed to this decline is habitat loss. These concerns are based on an independent, peer-reviewed scientific studies. The resolution they have drafted asks that Longmont become a pollinator-safe community by adopting practices that, wherever possible, mitigate these negative impacts. So with council consensus, I would like to direct staff to bring back a resolution. This resolution is consistent with Strategy 5.12 of Chapter 4 of Envision Longmont and the guiding principles of the Sustainability Plan.
Okay, I guess I'm for that because you had the qualifying word whenever feasibly possible. That's an important clause. Councilmember Peck?
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I am passing out a article from the Denver Post about the $134 million that RTD is going to save on paying the Union Station debt sooner. And I would like to have a conversation and see if we can give a directive to...
Can we, solve the...
I'm
sorry.
I thought
that's
you
already
were
been
done with that one.
And second. Yes, we need to finish discussing this one first. Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. First of all, I think that's a phenomenal idea. All for it. However, just because it's a phenomenal idea doesn't mean that we should vote on it next week. Meaning aren't we?
We're just
directing. We're just directing staff. The thing, what I'm saying is that before we were getting motions and then we'd get sucked into things. I'm just saying I'm going to vote for this because it's a good one. But what happens when the next one comes up that's not a good one? I'm just saying that we said that our council rules were going to be we'd wait a week to give us a chance to think about it, et cetera. So I just suggest that we do that, but I'm going to vote for it because I think it's a great idea.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's just saying...
Staff will bring us back.
Bring it back, and then we get the evaluation. Yeah, it could be a month from now.
Right. I guess what I'm just saying is that, we can do what we want.
Yeah.
The what?
Jeff has it right.
Okay. All right. Well, we don't need to then. That's fine.
As long as we have consensus.
As long as we have consensus. But I just don't know if there's... Anyway, that's fine.
Councilmember Christensen.
Yeah, the consensus is, if we have consensus, it's not to okay this, it's to have staff come back and discuss it. I do think it's a very good idea, as most of us who are gardeners here, we know that this is, critical all over the world. The bees are dying, and we will be out of food if the bees die. So it's something we need to think about and address. I'll be voting for it when it comes back.
Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I have no problem with a resolution, but I would like to hear, before we get to a resolution, what staff is already doing. I think maybe not the next session, regular session, but perhaps the following. It gives staff enough time to at least present at council what we're already doing. So maybe staff could look at the resolution and see exactly what our best practices are in going forward.
Yeah, I know David Bell has been in conversations with this group, and they have discussed this issue, but we can also come back and update you. We, if you remember at Rogers Grove, we had a test plot area that we were looking at, so we can definitely accomplish.
Yeah, so
actually, we can bring them at the same time.
Bring it at the same time, because a resolution, again, we're going to go to, looking at this resolution will go under consent agenda. Are we going to have the presentation before the consent?
What we could do is we could pull it off and present and then vote on it separately.
Okay. All right? Yeah. Okay.
Councilmember Peck.
I agree with the directive.
Okay, so I guess you've got enough. Okay. Now, did you want to come back on?
I do.
Okay.
So I'll start all over. We just handed out an article that was in the Denver Post about RTD paying Union Station debt off sooner, which saves it $134 million. So this $134 million was already budgeted by RTD. So what I would like is RTD has a FISA account which has been put aside for unfunded projects, construction of unfunded RTD projects, which would be the North Metro and the Northwest Corridor. Rather than having them put it in an operations and maintenance account for existing corridors, I would like, if you agree, to direct staff to another resolution from City Council that we would like this money to go into the FISA account and not into operation and maintenance for already existing accounts. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The FISA account, let's see if I can get this correct, it's the Fast Track's internal savings account. And at an RTD meeting about a month and a half ago, they directed staff to make FISA nothing more than a construction account. RTD wanted to get rid of FISA completely, and the board said, no, we need to keep FISA, and all the money that goes into unfinished projects for fast tracks. So this $134 million, instead of letting it just float away and no one can say where it went, it would make sense to put this in the FISA account. So if you agree, I would like to direct staff to come up with a resolution from our council to RTD.
I agree. Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Again, before we vote on anything, I'd like to get staff. We hire staff to get the perspective, to understand everything that's going on, whether it's, I read in the paper too that RTD said that it's $134 million they really don't have. But I don't have a problem with supporting this, but I'd like to get a little bit more information than just what was presented here in the last 3 minutes. We need to have a staff presentation with perhaps a recommendation to do that, Councilmember Peck. I would have no problem with that, but I would like to see some staff input as well. I think it's vital. Or we're just going to, the idea of having this area on the agenda was to, hey, I'd like to put something on the next, perhaps on the next council meeting. But now we're talking resolutions where none of us have really gotten the background or the information to make an intelligent decision when it comes back next week. I'd like to hear from staff on both of the previous topic and this topic.
Councilmember Moore.
Well, I think that's really exactly what we've asked for. We're asking staff to bring back a resolution and then how they came to their conclusions and what they put in the resolution and why. So I don't think we're deviating from our standard practice. This was put on the agenda to stop us from adding stuff at the very end of the meeting. And resolutions don't necessarily have to come back next council meeting. They can come back in a month if that's what it takes for staff to do the job they need to do. So I think it's in my mind, I would consider this as a given if we ask for a resolution. It's whenever staff has time to do it and how long it takes them to research the issues.
Okay. Councilmember Peck.
Thank you. I agree, Councilman Moore, that that is part of the directive, is to come back with reasons why we're doing it and to research it, and that's what a resolution is. Once all of that research has been done. So again, when you have time and can work it into on the agenda.
Okay.
So thank you.
Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor Coons. Well, thank you for the clarification, but the way it came across was that we're just going to start putting resolutions on. If staff's going to be able to vet those resolutions and bring us back some good information, I think that's vital. And if that's what the intent was, I have no problem with it.
Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I think it's a great idea, Councilmember Peck. Again, my only concern is that these are too good again, at some point we're going to have a bad idea for resolution. And at some point we're going to want a week to think about it to be able to, anyway. So, yeah,
Okay.
I add my consensus.
All right. Councilmember Christensen.
Okay, just to put in my 2 cents, the mayor and the city manager set the agenda. So this is our opportunity to put items on the agenda. And of course, we don't just put something on the agenda. We expect to have staff do some research and craft a resolution that makes sense. And they always do. So thank you.
So I do have a comment here. What if they, we ask them to do a resolution and they do their research and they say, hey, this is really a bad resolution. And,
We will tell you.
Yeah, that's what we. Okay. Yeah, we value your opinion. All right, so city manager, is there a report from you?
No comments, Mayor, Council.
Okay, so we'll go to first call, public invited to be heard. And we've got Don Murray is first up, so please come down and state your name and address for the record. Yeah.
Good evening. I'm Don Murray, 6 Princeton Circle in Longmont, and I'm here tonight as a citizen and as a member of the Longmont Coalition for People and Pollinators, who's been talking to several people on City Council, including Councilman Moore. And just a little background about LCPP is that we were formed from Sustainable Resilient Longmont and the People and Pesticide Action Network, and provided input to both the sustainability plan and the master plan primarily for pesticides and pollinators. And both plans call for policies and plans to be developed to reduce toxic pesticide use in the city and educate the public the dangers of poisons to pollinators. And I'm glad to see that you're very supportive of our efforts. Pollinators of all kinds, including native bees, butterflies, and European honeybees, are critically important part of our agricultural food system, contributing something like $10 to $20 billion to our economy. Because of this, the current decline in these pollinators, including honeybees, wild bees, butterflies, birds, as well as invertebrates in the soil and water systems, is a serious concern. The loss of habitat and food supply for pollinators through the use of pesticides development, resulting in habitat loss and other negative environmental impacts are contributing to this decline. And as a beekeeper, I've seen the effects of improper pesticide use on my hives, and it's a sad sight to watch your bees struggling. Just in terms of what LCPP does is we're talking to our neighbors, HOAs, garden groups, and about safe gardening practices that will make pesticide-free spaces and provide abundant forage, which is important. We're working on creating pollinator-safe neighborhoods in Longmont and expect to have the first officially designated pollinator-safe neighborhood in Longmont by the end of this year, if not 4. And this is a way for us to help the city implement the goals in Section NE1 of the Longmont Sustainability Plan. However, we also need the city to do its part on city-owned property And Longmont's already considering ways of reducing the effects of poisons. It's outlined in Strategy 512 of Chapter 4 of the master plan, but there's no overarching policy in place to direct staff on how to do that. So we'd like to see the City Council pass a pollinator safe Longmont resolution that would provide a blueprint to city departments on how to protect both native pollinators and honeybees through safe practices. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Hone?
Hi, Mike Honch. It's spelled the way you had it. So Mike Honch, 1043 Sparrow Hawk. I'm here to talk again about the Ryder Well Land disposition proposal. I'm going to push maybe my time limit, so if I speak quickly, or I'm not trying to be terse, I'm just trying to get said what I've said in the time allotted. So there were February 4th news article referenced up to 330 housing units, and it quoted staff as suggesting a very specific disposition price, $333,847. I was at the meeting last week, and what I heard was nothing's really been determined yet. We don't know what types of housing could go there. Affordable and low income are two different things, which I acknowledge and realize. And let's see what PRB says. All very non-committal. What I would posit, though, is when we have a number of 330 that's been put out by someone who's reporting and ostensibly talking to someone at the city, there's an idea behind this. The proposed disposition price, if it's accurate, and correct them if it's not, but that's a very specific number. So there is a vision. Someone has a vision. It may be in the rough state, but there is a vision. So public's invited to speak. I'm speaking on this issue, but I still don't know actually what I'm speaking against. It's like I don't know how outraged I'm supposed to be or not supposed to be about this issue, because I don't know what the initial concept is, even though I'll grant you that it's an initial concept. So just please, more transparency on the issue, specifically before next month's PRB meeting that's supposed to include the citizens, and I think maybe a vote on this if I understand how the process goes. The last thing that I want to talk about is potential liability here. It was mentioned by Councilmember Peck last week. It's an important consideration. We've seen benzene levels there apparently that are 100 times state levels. Should the land be sold and there's an environmental issue down the road, or a subsidence issue due to the fracking, or something that damages the homes or damages the people that live there, selling it doesn't take the city of Longmont out of the chain of title. By the time any of these problems arise, the most likely scenario is that all these incorporated entities and limited partnerships have been dissolved and disappeared in the wind. Longmont City, the city of Longmont, is the only real entity that's left in the chain of title. I would urge city attorney, if that's who you are, sir, to look up U.S. Bank versus Hudson River Valley. Selling the property and getting out of the chain of title doesn't protect the city from liability. What protects you from liability is holding on to the property and controlling the use. The last thing I'll say, and I'll keep talking until I reach my minutes here, I'm a CCIM. I'm a certified commercial investment member, a realtor, a commercial real estate specialist. I bring up my credential not just to brag, but to say that I have some information or some insight on land deals.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Karen Dyke?
Karen Dyke, 708 Hayden Court. I have just a couple questions tonight, and I wanted to bring those forward so that maybe we can make sure that they're addressed when the topic is brought up on 8D. I'm rather concerned and amazed that the funding that was gone, the grant fund that was gotten for the road out by Smucker's, the new, which is great that we have that new plant coming, but it's an energy and mineral impact assistance program, which to me sounds like oil and gas development. And so I would like to know if there is any plans of oil and gas development in that area. And then I'm also concerned that the road goes way beyond where the plant is and goes up to the railroad tracks. And that also leads me to believe that the plan is that that road is being put in place for future oil and gas development. And like the gentleman before me, I'd like to ask for some transparency. So if those items could be discussed when that item comes up, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, Karen Walker.
Good evening, council members and Mayor Coombs. My name is Christy Walker. I live at 102 Bowen Street here in Longmont, just on the edge of the Bone Farm neighborhood. I'm here also, as Dawn was as well, as a member of the Longmont Coalition for People and Pollinators. And I'm just hoping that, I first want to say thank you very much, Council Member Moore, for bringing that proposal to Council, and how much we are wanting to have all of you look at this proposal and support passing this proposal. One of the things that Longmont Coalition for People and Pollinators do, and that I do personally, is we go to farmers markets, we go to neighborhood meetings. I'm active in going to different people's houses in my neighborhood, asking if they would like to sign and be part of this pollinator safe neighborhood that we have going. And I haven't taken specific data on this, but I would say that probably 85 to 90% of the people who I speak to are willing to make this promise or this pledge that they would love to be helping us to protect pollinators in our area. We have 3 different levels, where the first one is to please just not be using the systemic pesticide of neonicotinoids, which everybody is pretty, people who aren't aware of what neonicotinoids are, once we start talking with them, they just are amazed that these things exist and that we are putting them as gardeners, as municipalities, as farmers on our property. The second level that we have when we talk to our neighbors and other people is that people please be using organic gardening methods, hopefully not even using any sorts of pesticides and chemicals. And the third level that we have is asking people to, in addition to not using neonicotinoids or any synthetic chemicals, is to please be planting plants that are attracting pollinators so that we can provide more foraging habitat. Of the people who I speak to, it's probably, like I said, 85 to 90% of the population who we've spoken to, neighbors, neighborhood meetings, farmers markets, who are very in support of that third level of all 3 of those. So I think it would be a wonderful thing for us as Longmont citizens and the government to be able to adopt a similar thing that really reflects what the people in our community are hoping to see. And the fact that this is even an issue that is coming forth is so impressive to me, that this is the type of community that we are creating here in Longmont. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Kay Fissinger. Oh, excuse me. I misspelled. Excuse me. Joanne Burton is first. Sorry. I screwed up. Sorry, Kay.
This is going to be really short. So Joanne Burton and 713 Snowberry. I'm in the subdivision by Airport and Nelson. And I just want to say a couple of things. So the Times Call article mentioned that the airport noise complaints have plummeted. Well, maybe the numbers aren't there anymore, but our group, we're saddened and disillusioned. And I'm speaking personally. I'm looking at the calendar. It's February. Maybe I have another month, maybe 2 more months, but the noise will continue. It just seems like, and I'm speaking for myself, a simple solution is to replace those twin otters. And so that's what I'm leaving with you. I don't mind mile-high skydiving, but it's the noise. Why can't we replace those airplanes?
Thank you. Kay Fissinger.
Kay Fissinger, 2199 Creekside Drive. I'm here to talk about the same subject that Karen Dyke brought up, and she made some very, very good points. I don't blame the city for wanting to get grants from the state. It's done all the time. A lot of places within the state's budgets, grants are available. But I'm very, very curious as to why we are doing an energy and mineral impact assistant application for a grant. There won't be any drilling for anything where Colorful is and where the new Smuckers project is. Now, we already on the map, for those who don't really know what things are, there's a little area that shows up very faint that is the existing well to the east of Fairview Avenue. All of that property, which once used to be known as Fairview Estates, back 2007 and before, and that's owned by the Lifebridge Elders. So I am sure that there probably will, when the money is right, be more development on that Fairview property. But why are we putting in more and more roads? Is this going to serve their development? That's not our responsibility. Even to apply for grants on their behalf is not our responsibility. There was a statement in the council communications. The funding for this grant is derived from the state's severance tax on energy and mineral production. Well, why in the world are we going to the severance tax fund for roads? That doesn't seem to make very much sense to me. And it also talks about impacts to development, processing, or energy conversion of minerals and mineral fuels. That certainly implies an awful lot like that is going to be going on, and there's no room on the west side with the two big buildings. So it obviously has to do with the east side. Another question is, who is responsible for the development of Fairview? Did that come with the annexation to the city of Longmont? Or is that still part of Weld County's responsibility to build roads? All of this just doesn't feel right. It feels like, quite frankly, it feels like there was stuff going on that some people in staff may not have really wanted to be known until the first part of it was approved, and now we have this. So, yes. How about some more transparency so we really, really know what the city is planning? Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Stewart.
Good evening. Scott Stewart, 229 Grant Street, council members, Mayor Combs. My issue is just basically talking about the airport a little bit. I'll just read from this since I'm not a great speaker. I would like council members to try an experiment the next time they find themselves in their backyards on a beautiful weekend. Pretend that your property is affected by the sound of repeated flight patterns that create a constant droning sound. Take time from your day and log a complaint. If you're not familiar with the process, you may call the airport and leave a voicemail with the airport manager. Now go back to your day. But did you know the voicemail isn't a registered complaint? Maybe you should go to the city website. After querying airport noise, you get to follow 6 page links, and then you can create a login, create a password, confirm your account, check your email, click a link, confirm your account, back to the login page, read answers to common concerns, and if you're still motivated, submit your concern. Now go back to enjoying the property you invested so much in. Mayor Combs, Mayor Combs Council, the city website states, the mayor and council members are the leaders and policymakers of the community, elected to represent various segments of the community and to concentrate on the policy issues and are responsive to the residents' needs and wishes. I think it's clear that the needs of the community is for the council to be aware the increasing impact that operations at the airport have on the quality of life for those of us below the activity. The wish is that council give equal weight to the concerns of the community that has chosen to live in this beautiful city. I have lived in the city for 18 plus years. My concern is that without opposition, the airport continues to be an increased nuisance for those of us on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that ends first call public invited to be heard, so now we're on to the consent agenda.
Mayor Coombs, your consent agenda 8A is ordinance 2017-09, a bill for an ordinance designating the Dell House at 430 Emery Street as a local historic landmark. Public hearing and second reading of this ordinance is scheduled for February 28th. Second item is Resolution 2017-07, approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and the Colorado Department of Transportation for the maintenance of state highways within the city's jurisdiction. Item 8C is Resolution 2017-08, approving the intergovernmental agreement between the city and Colorado Water Conservation Board for grant funding to update a water efficiency plan. Item 8D is a motion to approve Energy and Mineral Impact Assistance Program application to the Colorado Department of Local Affairs for Tier 2 grant funding to support public infrastructure improvements at Concepts Industrial Park. And staff does not have a need to pull anything from the agenda.
Councilmember Pack.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I'd like to pull 8D.
Councilmember Christensen.
Never mind, that's what I was going to do.
Councilmember Finley.
Mayor Coombs, I move passage of the consent agenda minus 8D.
All right, the consent agenda minus D has been moved and seconded. Let's vote.
Just a second.
That passes 7-0.
Mayor Coombs, your next item is your second reading and public hearings. First item is 9A, Ordinance 2017-06, a bill for an ordinance reducing appropriations for expenses and liabilities of the City of Longmont for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2017. Staff does not have a formal presentation on this.
Okay, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing on Ordinance 2017-06. Is anybody from the public like to speak on this ordinance? I guess seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing on Ordinance 2017-06. Councilmember Finley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I move passage of Ordinance 2017-06.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded by Councilmember Bagley. Let's vote. That passes 7-0.
Your next item is Ordinance 2017-07, a bill for an ordinance directing staff to process an application for outside water service at 9800 119th Street. And staff does not have a formal staff presentation on this. I think they presented at the last meeting.
Okay, is there any questions from council before we open up the public hearing? All right, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing on Ordinance 2017-06. Is there anybody from the public? 07, excuse me. Who would like to speak on Ordinance 2017-07? All right, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing on Ordinance 2017-07. Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I'd like to move passage of Ordinance 2017-07.
Second.
All right, that's been moved and seconded. Let's vote.
I thought you recused yourself from this. I've got to recuse myself. That's true. This is that one, right?
Yeah.
And the, yeah, it doesn't matter at this point. Meaning that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
All right, that passed 7-0.
Mayor Coombs, your next item is the one that was pulled from consent, which is item 8D, and that's the motion regarding the Energy and Mineral Impact Assistance Program. I believe, Harold, were you going to address
We'll
questions?
jump in. Actually, there may be several of us that jump in. Mayor, Council, this grant was actually something that was put into the incentive package by the state of Colorado, the Office of Economic Development and Industrial Trade, as we were going through the process. Hold on, Sean. And so as we were going through the process, we obviously, what we were talking to council about were the incentives that were related to the local government. During that process, the state then pushed it to Weld County, and Weld County then pushed it to the city at the last minute. And so we were somewhat scrambling internally to put together this grant application as we were moving forward. This grant application is directly related to the development of the property associated with the Smuckers project. And so that's a bit of the history. So when we talk about the development process, one of the things that comes in when a business locates in a certain area, there are certain requirements that they have to meet in that development process. And so one, as we were talking to council about this, and this is associated with the incentive package, is because this property is undeveloped and because Fairview is on our master plan, the property owners would be responsible for developing Fairview. And originally, we were estimating to the railroad tracks. One of the things that we're looking at as we're going over their site plans is really how far does that need to go, because it may just have to go to the entrance of their property. But one of the agreements, one of the pieces of the contract that we put in place with Smuckers is that there was the potential for the company to have to put an amount of money in escrow for a future crossing of the railroad. The agreement that we actually have in place that we took before council says that they don't have to put that escrow down today. They actually would put that in upon construction of this if it was ever constructed. That is a part of the requirements of development. The other requirement that comes into play based on their development of their project is to finish the construction of Peak from approximately this location to this location. Again, that's a property bordering the area that they're looking to develop. There's also going to potentially need to be some work that occurs at this area of Fairview based on the traffic volumes of folks coming into work, trucks coming in to bring product into the location to be produced. And then another piece of that is a traffic signal. And as council will remember, that's another item that's in the incentive agreement where they would pay 25% of that traffic signal and the city would pay 75%. Part of the reasoning for that is because there's an impact in this area from Sandstone Park in terms of the activity that we have here. One of the things that we're looking at right now in the development process is their traffic study to determine whether or not those items meet warrants. And so we're in that review process as we speak and as we continue to move forward. The grant in question, again, was initiated by the state of Colorado as part of this broader process. This is an economic development project that we are working on collectively with Weld County and the state of Colorado. Weld County, I believe, abated 50% of the property tax as part of this project. The other pieces that start coming into play, so let me back up a little bit. So it is based on the severance tax. According to DOLA, the most competitive applications into the program are those that demonstrate urgency and local commitment to get the project done, show a high priority. Sorry, my computer just died. Show a high priority for the proposed application, are prepared to start work, and can demonstrate a relationship to energy and mineral impact in the area. So one of the things that we were looking at in this project is specifically, we knew that as part of the development process, they were going to have to build this, and they were going to have to build this. There was also some conversations by the company, and something that is in our transportation documents, is actually bringing Peak from this location down to 119 and having a right-in, right-out to service this area as it develops for economic development purposes in the future. Also associated with that is to have the necessary acceleration and deceleration lanes in this area. Some of that work has been completed as part of the 119 project, but really where the acceleration lane is going to need to occur is this way west as we move on 119. So basically what the grant is for is to put in place the infrastructure in this area, this item, taking Colorful out to where Pinnacle would be, taking Pinnacle down to 119, and then obviously the improvements associated with the traffic signal. It's all a direct result of the Smuckers project and what we're looking at. The connection to oil and gas is that is the funding source for this DOLA grant, and as part of the application we had to say what the impact was of oil and gas to the area. Yeah. And so Sean will pull up a site plan to show this. And so as part of the application, in order to be competitive, we obviously talked about the development that was occurring in Weld County and the impact of this area. You can see that those are the roads that we're discussing. And again, it is to serve the area that Smuckers will be occupying, but also what it will allow us to do is to make the other areas more marketable for future economic development prospects.
Councilmember Peck, you want to pull it? Do you have a question?
I do. So, Harold, just to reiterate a little bit, the DOLA grant is funded through severance taxes.
Correct.
But the grant itself is not for oil and gas exploration. It is only for infrastructure development. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Was through DOLA, was there any other grant that we could have gotten other than a grant from oil and gas severance tax? Or did this come down through the state that this was the one we had to use?
This is the one that came from the Governor's Office of Economic Development and International Trade. Sean, I don't know if there's another DOLA grant for this type of infrastructure.
Mayor, Councilmember Peck, Harold's correct. This is actually a grant that was offered by the state as part of the state's incentive package. And frankly, it was quite surprising to us that when we got the award, that they would pick Longmont contingent upon the incentives, that we would have to apply for the grant. We thought that the grant would be automatically granted from the state because they had offered it to the company. And so we kind of had to do some scrambling and legwork to actually get this submitted. But again, it was an offer of the state of Colorado.
So in order for Smuckers to come here, both the state and the city offered an incentive package.
As well as Weld County.
County.
So this grant had nothing to do with oil and gas. It was the incentive package that, for funding.
Right.
Okay, I just wanted to make that clear because as it showed as we talked about pages 11 through 16 on the council communication, it wasn't very clear that was what it was for.
And I think if you look at, page 11, and I'm going to go there really quick, it's really related to the question submitted by DOLA as part of the application. So, question 6. Describe how the applicant has been, or will be impacted by the development, production, or conversion of energy and mineral resources. Mm-hmm. So they're specifically asking how we would be impacted by this at this location. And based on some of the conversations, the other thing that I think we need to point out is this is Firestone in this location. Okay. And there is a well site right here. So there's an impact to the area, and that's what we're using as the nexus to get the funding to build out the infrastructure as part of this grant project. But the reason for the grant application is this.
Okay. So to answer one of the public's questions, the purple road there, what is the purpose of extending that road to the railroad track?
It's a development requirement to develop the road adjacent to the property. Now, that means we have to develop it on our side. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's developed on the Firestone side. And those are all issues that we're going through in the development review now.
Okay.
Now, that being said, based on putting a turn signal at this location, there will have to be a turn lane and some other improvements made to the intersection. But remember, this is an industrial activity. We're going to have a lot of folks coming in and out of this area for shifts. We're also going to have trucks coming in bringing product into the area for the manufacturing of the Uncrustables. So that combined with the normal traffic on 119, combined with the traffic going into Sandstone, those are all things that are taken into consideration in the traffic study that we do.
Okay. So I think that my questions have been answered, and I feel more relieved about what we're doing here than when I first read it, because I did get a little crazy reading this section.
And I would say that, you know, if we are fortunate enough to get the grant, one of the things that council has talked about is the available space that we have for this type of economic development activity, that light industrial activity, the amount of space we have in our community. One of the things that we've seen in this area that's been problematic is the lack of the development of the infrastructure. And so if we're able to do this, it definitely presents more opportunities for our community to market this area for future businesses that can bring additional jobs to Longmont.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Christensen?
Just to reiterate, the rail improvement is really just for the crossing? And they will be putting that in a trust to develop it later?
They're not putting it in, we have by contract, we're not requiring them to put it in escrow.
Oh, okay.
But we will require them to participate in the project if and when it's constructed, because, you know, the issue that really came in with regard to this location is there's no immediate plans to take the road north of the railroad.
Right.
And so, you know, the comment was in the economic development negotiations, well, we just don't want a lot of money sitting here. Yeah. And that's when we agreed, well, if you agree to pay for it in the future, we won't require it to be in an escrow account because there's no plans. Now, theoretically, they could come in and say, you know, at 500 jobs and hopefully other activities in this area, they may say it's easier to get our staff members out of this location and back into Longmont moving this way. But again, that's a theoretical conversation.
Yeah, right. I understand that. Okay. When I was reading through this, I kept saying, what does this have to do with mineral and rights? So who actually owns the mineral rights for that?
I'm not sure who owns the mineral rights. They had to notify the mineral right holders for some of the public meetings we have. Dale, do you know the answer to that question?
Okay.
It's part of the planning process, so they had to go for a height variance. They had to notify the mineral right holders, but I'm not sure who it is. Now, just north of there, it's us, and if council will remember in the master contract, this is one of the locations that's identified in the master contract, and they're aware of, and the company is aware of this future location, and they're also aware of, there's a current location right here that was drilled by, I believe, extraction.
And when you
in Firestone.
I forget where it is here. There's a discussion of making this good for gas lines that cross through lands, and that would obviously be something possible here, but it's already happening, and we can't seemingly do anything about it. I guess what I found, something I hadn't actually thought about, is that when you read through this, it seems like we're providing, well, this is in Weld County, And part of the basis for this is to make this better for Weld County's, for Weld County to develop a more robust economic base rather than have it be 90% oil and gas.
Yeah, it's definitely
So
to create a
we're
more diverse economy.
helping Weld County a lot, which irritates me, but oh well. And we do hope, of course, that all the employees are coming from Longmont, but the truth is that it's just as close to, well, it is in Weld County, and it's just as close to people who live in Weld County. But nevertheless, I think it's a very good, Smuckers is a very good project. They've been around for a long, long time. They're a good company, but I am concerned about why this is a mineral and energy thing. I do want to point out, though, to the audience that part of the energy thing is that they are going to try to develop a LEED certified building, which is a very good thing, and that they are doing a lot of this is in an effort to make this a very green kind of development, which is something that is part of what the description of the energy and mineral part of this grant is. So, thank you.
Yeah, so one of the questions is, will this project implement an energy efficiency strategy that could result in less carbon footprint, or conserve energy, or utilize capital, or capitalize on renewable energy technology? And as we stated, they're looking at a LEED facility, and there's a lot of conversations about multiple energy efficiency aspects to the project.
Yeah. What is going to happen to the old Concepts Direct building? Is that
It's still being utilized
it is?
by
Okay.
other companies.
okay? This is a good area, though, because we are running out of industrial space. It is a good area for us to use for that, and it is a good idea for us to develop these roads using state money because we don't have enough ourselves to do that, and to develop roads that don't have just one access out to the highway, but that will enable the employees of that to go out on several different roads.
Yeah, and I would say there is emergency access here, an emergency access
that's just
easement,
emergency.
but obviously, well,
Okay.
currently.
Yeah. Oh,
Not
okay.
great access, it's emergency access, but this would be a full road with only a ride-in and ride-out movement.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to be supporting this. I think anytime you can get state money coming back into Longmont, I mean, the thousands and thousands of dollars I pay into state income tax, it's nice when they're going to give us money that helps our economic development. It just, to me, is a kind of a no-brainer at this point. Councilmember Peck.
This does not have a resolution number on it, so I'm just going to move consent agenda 8D.
All right. Oh, it's been moved and seconded. Let's vote.
Council, one piece I did want to say that if we don't get the grant, I mean, they're still required to do the work in this location, the work in this location to a point we're defining, and then peak.
Okay.
They're not required to do this, at least today, based on the analysis. We're still reviewing it, and it could potentially come back and say they're required. We're working through all of those as a development application.
Okay, well, that motion passed 7-0, but since the state was the first one that offered them this grant and we have to apply for it, it seems highly unlikely that they're going to pull the rug out from under them now that we have formally, I mean, it doesn't seem like that's very likely to me.
We've had a fair amount of conversations on that issue, and I think we're actually meeting with DOLA in about a week or so to go over that. It has been an interesting conversation piece.
Okay.
But they have reminded us that it is a competitive grant.
Yep.
There are no sure things.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. I made a mistake. So when I was in the 5th grade, we were having bear with me. When I was in the 5th grade, we were having a lesson on prairie dogs, and then they went on to math. And then the teacher called on me, and I was like, what? Huh? I'm sorry, I was still thinking about prairie dogs. And I got teased for years. Anyway, I made a mistake tonight. The thing is, I was looking up and reading the RTD stuff during the second reading. And so by the time, I should have recused myself for 9B, just so you know. And by the time the vote occurred, I realized, oh, wait, I didn't recuse myself. So I moved that we reconsider. I know it's the milk has been spilt, the horse is out of the barn, but just so I can, say that, look, I mean, consistency. I'd like the opportunity. I move that we revote so I can actually recuse myself from the vote.
Can we do that? Okay, let's vote to reconsider.
I shall go out of the room. Let me know when you're done.
No, well, you could stay for that.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Oh, whatever the reconsider. Yeah,
Yeah.
reconsider. You made the motion.
Yeah.
That's true.
And, okay, that passes 7-0, so.
I'll leave the room.
Okay. We don't have to open up the public hearing again on that, do we? Okay. Councilmember Moore.
I would like to move ordinance 2017-07 under reconsideration.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Let's vote. Okay, that passes 6-0 with Councilmember Bagley, I guess absent or recused. All right. So now is time for final call. No, it's for general business. We got the airport report.
Yes. Mayor Coombs, your item is presentation of the airport annual report for 2016, and David Slater, the airport manager, will introduce this item.
Do you want to?
It wouldn't be the first vote I got wrong. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm David Slater, your airport manager for the city of Longmont at the Vance Brand Airport. Coming before you, as I do every year, with just an annual update to the airport. And of course, in your packets, you should have a copy of that report. First thing I'd like to do is start with the highlights. Beginning in February of 2016, we attended the Unity and Community with the Longmont Chamber of Commerce. We've been trying to keep active and keep the community and businesses aware of the airport and its purpose and goals. It's a good opportunity for us to provide information about the airport as well as market to different people, market the airport to different people. In March, the airport completed a professional and comprehensive wayfinding signage project. So now we have professional looking signs that show the businesses that are located at the airport, how to get there, the distances they are, once you get there, where to go. And we actually came in slightly under budget on that. In June 2016, the City Council approved an updated version of the rules and regulations and minimum standards for commercial service operators, which was presented to you by city management and staff. Also in June, the Airport Advisory Board, in conjunction with many volunteers, held the Airport Expo 2016. There were between 3,500 and 4,000 people who attended. Many of the comments that we received from those that attended said that this is one of the best airport expos that have been held at the airport since the beginning. I think it's important to note that as to how many of the public do come out and is becoming more aware of the airport. In July 2016, we received our second certificate of authorization for unmanned aircraft system and working in partnership with UAS USA, who is a tenant. We've also been working with other city departments pertaining to their certificates of authorization to fly drones for the purpose of emergency management. In September, the airport attended 2 separate Longmont Rotary Clubs to present to those civic organizations the status of the airport, what had been taking places, the accomplishments, and the future plans of the airport. In September and October, the airport expended about $21,250 of local airport funds, specifically for pavement maintenance of the most distressed areas of pavement that would not be covered under the FAA and state grant. And this was a significant undertaking considering the amount of pavement that has been failing at the airport. In October 2016, in conjunction with the Longmont Channel 8, the airport and city management finalized a promotional and marketing video for the Vance Brand Airport. It is up on our website for the airport. This video is on the airport webpage and has been sent out to our local media. In conjunction with this, we have finalized a marketing packet toward the end of December that we'll be carrying into the beginning of 2017 to actually put marketing packets and a marketing plan together and start targeting individual companies that we'd like to see come to the airport. In October of 2016, we began working with a consultant on a utility infrastructure and drainage plan for the south side of area that can be developed on the airport. This project has carried over, and we are more than 50% complete. We're still finalizing comments received from other city departments to be implemented within that, and we're hoping to, by the end of the first quarter, we'll have that finalized. It's kind of a mini master plan for where the utilities need to be placed in order to develop the south side. Also in November 2016, we worked with one of our tenants to obtain an extremely high resolution and current aerial photograph of the airport for various uses such as marketing, identification of areas of issue, and layouts presented to potential tenants. And then finally in December 2016, the airport finalized the taxiway pavement rehab project that was funded by the FAA and state that the 5% local funds that we put into it was a huge help for the additional distress pavement that we had to address. One of the things that's new in this annual report that you haven't seen in past annual reports is airport data that I believe is important to understand the things and activities that go on at the airport. Our total flight operations was in excess of 71,000 takeoffs and landings. We flowed over 231,000 gallons of fuel, and there are 305 based aircraft at the Vance Brand Airport. This is very significant in the number of aircraft at a small general aviation airport as compared to many of the other general aviation airports. As you can see, there's different categories of flight instruction data, whether a person does their first solo, obtains a private pilot or a commercial certificate or an instrument rating, multi-engine rating, and that's broken out, but you can see a significant amount of flight training in the different categories that's going on in the airport just in 2016. Several of the services offered, there's 14 bullet points in the packet that range from maintenance to flight instruction to catering, and I won't read through all of them, but there's approximately 14 bullet points there, I think, that describe the different services that are offered at this airport. That brings us to the noise abatement review process. I think it's important to note that there are multiple categories that, while many times the focus is on the complaints, there are other categories such as general concerns where we have a request for an airport tour or hobbyists notifying us of operating a drone within 5 miles of the airport. We've also had 10 positive comments and feedback for the airport through that system. And so as you'll see in the noise complaint data, there is a decrease of 712 complaints as compared to the 2015 calendar year. All but 15 complaints pertain to the skydiving aircraft. The things noteworthy, and I don't remember the exact number for 2015, I should have written it down, I apologize, but the one thing that is significant about the 15 complaints that are non-skydiving, that was significantly more, in excess of I think 35 or 40 complaints last year. That has significantly dropped, and I think that that's in part to the meeting with the civic organizations and working with the folks that have complained to educate them about what the airport can and can't do. I think that a big part of that is a successful note, because I believe that the pilots that we have sent emails out to the general airport community about the areas that are hot spots for touch and go operations, and I think that the pilots are working with the community to try to help with that, and I think that's why we've seen a decrease in the non-skydiving complaints.
Councilmember Bagley, did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Combs. Just a quick question on the complaints. So in 2016, there were 257 complaints.
Yes, sir.
Total, including all types of aircraft, right?
That's correct, sir.
All right, and then so down below in the packet, the next graph shows the number of complaints and how many people made the number of complaints. Like 33 people complained 257 times.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. So when you add it up, 66 people complained in general about the airport in 2016, if you don't count multiple complaints. Am I reading that right? So 16 people complained one time, plus 6 people complained 2 times. So if you add 16 plus 6 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1, and then the 33 people that complained 257 times, you add up how many people were making complaints, 66. Is that how, am I reading that right?
I think the 33 is a total.
That's what I'm saying. 33 people combined complained 257 times together.
That's the sum of all of these complaints in that whole column.
Mayor and
Okay,
Councilmember
all right, I
Bagley.
get it. Got it.
There were 33 people in total that complained.
Okay,
and
so
the total number of
half of my
complaints
number.
that were
Got it.
received was 257 times. If you kind of go back up and look to the left side of that chart, it'll show that there were some people that complained multiple times. So there was one person that complained 6 times. There was one person that complained 16 times. One person that complained 103 times. So there were multiple complaints from single individuals, and so if you look at just that column, it should be a total of 33 people complained.
I didn't realize that was the total. So it's half of the 66, 33.
Yeah. Correct.
Out of 93,000. Okay. Interesting. Thank you.
I just had a quick question, being a non-aviator person. What's a tailwheel endorsement exactly?
A tailwheel endorsement is what you would consider a conventional aircraft. So prior to, I don't remember what year, it's different for different aircraft. Originally, aircraft had 2 main gear and then a tailwheel in the back.
Right.
And a lot of newer aircraft have the 2 main gear with a nose wheel. Oh. And so because the center of gravity is what it is and the tail wants to come around in front of the plane, the FAA requires a special endorsement to fly aircraft with a tail wheel.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So going back to the report, something notable about the touch-and-go operations, the majority of the non-skydiving complaints, and as in past years, the majority of the complaints are received on weekends from May through September, which are typically generally the busiest months. Generally flying a half-mile to a three-quarter-mile pattern on each side of the runway has been adhered to during the less active periods. Here's the point that I want to make sure everyone understands. There are times when the traffic pattern gets really, really busy, and during those times, it has to expand in order for safety. Mm-hmm. So while there is a recommendation for half-mile to three-quarter-mile for voluntary noise abatement procedures, once you get to a safety factor of multiple aircraft in the pattern at the same time when it's that busy, that pattern has to expand out, and it can go out to a mile. As well as larger aircraft and turbine aircraft, they fly a little bit further out and a little higher up if they're going to stay in the pattern. And of course, as we've kind of already delved into it, there's a breakdown of analysis by complaint type, as well as historical aircraft complaints. And of course, the highest percentage of household callers for complaints not associated with skydiving is within the airport influence zone. I do continue to speak with people who call in and talk about noise issues and try to answer any questions that they have and explain what the city's position is, as well as send emails out to the pilot and notifying them of the higher complaint areas that if they can avoid them to please be neighborly, and it seems to be working. The only thing that wasn't originally included in the report was kind of a last-minute request that I got from the Airport Advisory Board, and after presenting that to them, they asked if I could also make sure that the council was aware of how it maps out. And so that's why I sent out the information I did earlier, and just to be transparent and make sure everybody in the public also gets to see it, I did put it up on the screen. This first aerial photo is a high-level overview that shows all the areas, the different areas that are involved with the noise complaint and how it logs out. You have one up here by itself about aerobatics. These are in this area are more general aviation noise, and then it kind of branches out right along Nelson and Airport, and then further to the southeast, south and southeast for skydiving. If you go to the next page, that's kind of a mid-level. It kind of crops out a few of those that you don't see, but it kind of gives a better relationship to the airport, which is the reason I include the mid-level overview. And then to blow it up even further, the immediate vicinity of the airport, it shows the hotspot areas. There's one right up here in hygiene, and some GA noise concerns over some areas by that's pretty much under the traffic pattern or very near under the traffic pattern. Just depends on how busy the airport is as to where the traffic pattern falls. But this is the immediate vicinity of the airport. And that is my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions that I can.
All right, any questions? Councilmember Peck?
I do have a question. Thank you for that report, David. My question actually has to do with what we got for the airport layout plan rather than from your presentation. And I'm curious about what the timeline is for moving the Mile High skydiving according to your maps here. What timeline are we talking about when that structural engineering will be done, sewers, roads, et cetera, to move?
So there's two pieces to that. One is the study, which indicated would be finished hopefully in the first quarter of this year.
Okay.
The second piece is actually funding for that work. The airport fund does not have an ample amount of funds for the construction of this, and so that's going to be the piece that we'll start looking at it and look at how we can approach that in the future. There are different opportunities that we can look at in terms of if someone was interested in building the infrastructure related to the lease, we could look at what's allowed under the FAA regulations to essentially, if someone wanted to build hangars and put that in, we could look at the offset of that piece associated with the infrastructure. So really, it's a money issue that we're going to have to deal with.
Are we still looking at different, other than hangars, other development, commercial development, like restaurants and I don't know what else goes at an airport, but a restaurant?
Mayor Coombs, Councilmember Peck. Yes, ma'am. We pretty much put everything on the table. We would obviously have locations that are more suitable for non-aeronautical use. The restaurants and things like that, it would be more bricks and mortar that's aviation oriented and would go more with an aviation business is how we're looking at that. Because if we don't have an associated with an aeronautical use, if we got to the point that we started maxing out on our development, then we would have to shut those businesses down to make room for more aeronautical use. So we want to be cautious about that, in that either it's a less than long-term business arrangement that would be suitable for non-aeronautical, and they can do the shorter-term agreements and renew that until we needed that space. So we do have considerations for non-aeronautical in a place for them, only until we develop to the point that we need it for aeronautical use.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing that David didn't mention in his presentation that has been something we've talked about, there's been a fair amount of interest from folks looking to develop at the airport. One of the challenges that we're really dealing with is that by charter, we can only do a 20-year lease. And so when you look at the capital expenditures that they need, they really need a 30-year amortization period. And so that's been something that I think has deterred some development, is just that differential of the 20 to 30 years.
Councilmember Christensen?
So if we lease things, everyone has to have the same time period. We can't discriminate against, say, give people 5-year leases if they wanted it for short-term things, and give 30-year leases to some and 20-year leases to others.
You want to?
If you don't mind. Mayor Coombs, Councilmember Christensen, we can't discriminate. So what we do is we say up to 20 years on the lease arrangement. If a particular company or tenant wishes to have a 1-year lease,
Okay.
then they can. It would be more of what is your desire, what is going to accomplish what you want to accomplish as a tenant. So we allow everyone to have up to a 20-year lease. And then those are I'm not aware really of any that we currently have. I may be mistaken, but most of them are 20 years.
The charter is a ceiling on 20 years. And so to give you an example, the last airport that I worked with, we actually staggered the lease terms and looked at it based on capital investment at the airport. And a lot of airports do that. So the more you invest, the longer the term of lease you get.
Oh.
We're just capped at 20, which creates a financing issue for folks that want to do certain types of projects there.
Right. So, David, I applaud you for going to the Rotary Club and educating them and involving them, and I think that's important to find out what the needs of the business community are, and all kinds of different groups, not just business, but around town. I think that's great, and I'm glad to see the runway repair happening. That's really very overdue and very dangerous, and has been needed a long time. And the Airport Expo was wonderful. That was really fun. And I think that was just exactly what we need for a long time. I wanted to, the stickler here is the noise. And when was the new system for logging complaints put in? I think it's something like 2014. It was before you came, I know.
Mayor and Councilmember Christensen, I believe it was mid-2015.
Really? Okay. Well, I've heard many people say that it's really nearly impossible. And I think that may be to log a complaint, and I think that's maybe in large part why we're experiencing lesser complaints rather than the people are not still annoyed at it. But
we were also looking at, Sandy can talk to the email. We were also looking at some options with phones, but that got caught up in the middle of when our entire system cratered.
Yeah, I know.
The individual that
system.
did that, and
yeah,
we're still in recovery off of that project.
Yeah.
So
Councilmember Christensen, all I was going to mention is that the service order request is part of the entire city's website. So it's not, it is being used by airport, but it's also being used for service requests across the city. We do have a couple of other areas that you can go directly for different service requests. For example, in planning and development services and for public works, they each have some different portals for that. But this is the overall service request system that's used for any kind of request that comes through the city. I should mention that although it is now standard practice for security to be able to log into a system and create kind of a login so that you can map your own service requests, once you do that, then you can, and I think you've seen, put in requests over and over again with your login. So it does take an authentication because that's sort of the proper security nowadays for that kind of information because people are leaving their addresses and phone numbers and emails. So we can consider to look, we can continue to look at other options. We are continuing to look at other options for service requests for the entire city that would then bring in all the request services back in. But that technology isn't quite ready yet. Every time we look at it, it's not quite there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. So I was going to follow up with that too as well. I mean, I've heard a lot of people saying that they won't complain because it takes 5 minutes, and that's more time than they're willing to spend on a complaint. I think what's important to come out of the data, though, is still 94% of the complaints registered are from skydiving operations, and I think that's relatively consistent with past years. What other policies do you have around to register a noise complaint with the airport? Can I go in and make a complaint, register a complaint? Can I go back in an hour and do another complaint because there's still a lot of noise going on? And do you see that?
Mayor Coons, Councilmember Moore, yes, we do see multiple complaints being registered, and it's different for different complaints. As far as the time frame, it could be for whenever an event occurs. I have seen it as often as 20 minutes apart. As far as our policy, it does state that for an event, it should be 20 minutes per aircraft between events, simply because, or at least particularly for skydiving, simply because that's the majority of the complaints, and it was kind of based around that. And it takes about that time for them to load the aircraft, taxi out, take off, climb to altitude, come back down, and begin the process all over again. So I believe we have a 20 minutes per aircraft per event in the policy. However, that with a company that has more than one aircraft, that could be multiple. And we have seen multiple complaints from a single individual throughout a single day, if that answers your question.
I think that's important to understand, is that somebody that might complain 100 times may have to do that over a year, or they may be able to do it over a month. Because I guess that's what my point was. And if it's particularly bad, they might be doing some of that, but it doesn't look like they are. I think one of the things that is important to point out is that by having an automated system now, we have a better handle on how the complaints are registered and how they're counted. So I think that was one of the objectives that you had last year, rather than just carrying a spreadsheet and reading all the emails. I'd rather have you doing other things at the airport than filling out a spreadsheet every week. So I would also like to suggest that we add those 3 maps to the report to make that, since it was presented at council, we should, probably ought to have that as part of the airport report. So other than that, I think that's all I have.
Councilmember Peck?
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. David, just out of curiosity, when you move the skydiving operations to the south end of the airport, would that have any effect at all on the noise abatement, do you think?
Mayor Coombs, Councilmember Peck, no, ma'am. If I'm understanding your question correctly, it would just be the location of where the drop zone would be as development begins to occur on the south side. Mm-hmm. Then that would impact where the drop zone is, and so that's ultimately what we're looking at moving to the western end as depicted in the ALP update. Before we can do anything, we have to update our ALP as far as what our plans are for the airport, and that's why we're updating the ALP. But it won't have any impact as far as the aircraft operating. It's just where they are going to land on the airport once that becomes a reality.
Okay, I also want to add that I'm getting people complaining to me about the noise and won't go out to the website either. So just to add that to the total.
Councilmember Santos.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. Well, if you go to the city's website, you type in airport, it takes you, click a button takes you to the Vance Brand Airport. At the bottom of the page, if you have a complaint or a question, there's a link there. It's 1, 2, 3. And then it takes you to that, to link to Longmont. Then you register. Doesn't seem that difficult.
All right, thank you. That was a great report.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. David, I just want to say, I think you're doing a great job. I know last year was rocky, in particular, with the various changes in the rules and regs, and you being new and people maybe a bit unfairly riding you. And so seeing you give the report and standing here not in pieces is heartening. So thank you for your efforts.
Thank you, sir.
All right, now it's time for final call. Public invited to be heard. Is there anybody from the public who'd like to come down and speak?
Mayor Combs, council members, Scott Stewart again, 229 Grant Street. I actually have issue with the report. The maps that they just showed, obviously I didn't file my complaint well enough because I didn't see a pin in my address, which is in Old Town. Of the 71,000, I'd like somebody to ask the question of the 71,000 takeoffs and landings, 71,000 plus, how many of those were from Mile High itself? Why would somebody complain if our complaints are being discounted? I mean, we're talking about, hey, somebody could do this many, and, once you get beyond 6, we get marginalized and people don't credit us. They think we're just whiners. I've complained twice in the last year. And as far as communication and everything, with all due respect, you don't return my phone calls. Ask the city to take control of this airport. Look at the numbers on the balance, just the balance sheet of this. If this was a business without federal funding, it would not exist. You'd be bankrupt years ago. Make this stand on its own. Own this operation. The FAA owns this operation. We just own the land underneath it. Take control of it. Own it so you guys can actually say something about it. We keep using the excuse of it's out of our control. It's out of our control. Control it. Make it stand on its own. If this thing's not creating a profit by now, is there not something wrong? 260 plus acres in Boulder County and we can't turn a profit? There's something wrong with this. This is not a successful operation. We talk about increasing the businesses at the airport. Is Smucker's coming here because we have an airport? This airport was supposed to bring businesses to town, not businesses to the airport. We want executives flying in. We want it to create beyond what the airport's possibility is. We're in trouble here. You're just going to increase the noise level over our city with increased operations. Thank you.
Or does anybody else would like to speak? All right, I'm going to close public invited to be heard. So now is time for mayor and council comments. I guess I'll start by saying Happy Valentine's Day, Kristen. Councilmember Christensen.
Well, happy Valentine's Day to everybody. I guess I would just like to make 2 comments. According to this, there are 9,000 drilling permits issued in Weld County in the last 3 years. If we don't think that this is affecting our property values and our health and future, we're living in a dream world. Anyway, on a lighter note, El Comité is having their fundraising dinner. I think it's February the 25th, so buy your ticket. It's always a wonderful event and a lot of good food. So buy your tickets from El Comité.
Okay, I don't see anybody else. I guess my business of the week is Dirt Labs. Yeah, I just took my wife's bike in, so they do a great job. If you have a mountain bike and you need to get it fixed, they're awesome. All right, Councilmember Finley.
Well, if we're doing businesses of the week, I've got a new one. It's not open yet, but it will be, and you'll get a chance to see it the same day as Unity in the Community, which is the 23rd, I believe. The Wild Game Entertainment Experience is coming to Longmont in the old Sports Authority building. Should be a lot of fun, and I hope everybody gives it a try.
Councilmember Bagley.
Thank you, Mayor Coombs. This is for the gentleman in the back. You're sticking around, so I always like sharing my opinion. I always say, hey, stick around till the end, and we'll have a chance to respond. You did. Most people don't. For the last 5 years since I've been on council, the airport has been an issue, meaning it was one of the, other than fracking was day one, then the airport was week two. And you hit it on the head. I'm one of the ones that say, yeah, what can we do? It's out of our control, simply because the FAA does have jurisdiction over the airport. And so, if we're going to have an airport in Longmont, it will never be self-sustaining. Meaning the reason why they give federal grants is it's part of our national infrastructure and national security to have airports. And Longmont decided many, many, many years ago, far prior to the time that I came to Longmont, that we were going to have an airport. And as my illustrious colleague, Councilmember Moore, pointed out, most of the complaints are coming from Mile High, the skydiving operation. And I guess the challenge I give is the same challenge as I've given everybody who's talked to me publicly and privately, which is, what's the solution? And people always go, hey, well, you guys are elected, you should figure it out. And I'm not that smart, meaning it's something that people have been complaining about, not only in our community, but in several communities all over the United States for decades. And so I just want to say I empathize with you. I get it. I hear it. I've gone out and spoken personally to people at those little pins and listened. And if you're under that cone noise and you're in the traffic pattern, it's loud. And especially against the mountains, all airplanes, but especially the Twin Otter, you get that reverberation off the side of the mountain that, yeah, I would like water dripping. It might grate on me too. Now, that said, what do you do about it? Don't know. I personally am unwilling to shut down the airport. But at the same time, we're unable to basically say, you can stay, you have to go, you can stay, you have to go. We either have to kick everybody off or let everybody stay. And so there's no middle ground, and I realize that. So sorry, you're obviously frustrated and bothered, and I'm sorry for that. But thank you for coming.
Okay, City Manager, any comments?
No comments, Mayor, Council.
City Attorney, any comments?
No comments, Mayor.
Okay, this meeting is adjourned.
Sure, 8:30? You sure? Yeah. Let's do next week's meeting right now, quick.
We can go back.